The bold and the beautiful. Luna's dangerous game behind bars threatens more than just her freedom. Tension continues to rise in The Bold and the Beautiful. As Luna Nozawa's storyline veers into even darker, more dangerous territory, the young woman at the center of scandal, betrayal, and obsession is once again behind bars. And this time, her life, and the life of her unborn child, may be in serious danger. Luna's most recent arrest sent shockwaves through the Forrester, Spencer, and Logan families. After narrowly escaping capture once before, Luna found herself tracked down and detained once again, this time with the full backing of law enforcement and key figures who once supported her now turning their backs. When Deputy Chief Bradley Baker arrived at the scene, Luna made every plea imaginable. She cited the risk to her pregnancy. She warned of threats from inside the prison. She begged for house arrest or any alternative to a return to that facility. But her words fell on deaf ears. She was escorted in handcuffs, humiliated, and shoved back into the very cell she had feared all along. It didn't take long before trouble found her again. Luna had been assaulted during her previous stint in jail, and this time proved no different. Within 48 hours, she became the target of intimidation and manipulation by other inmates. Rumors swirled about her connection to the wealthy Spencer family, and in a place where power means everything, that made her both valuable and vulnerable. She was no longer just a scared girl with secrets, she was a target. And she knew it. Meanwhile, outside the prison walls, Bill Spencer finds himself in moral turmoil. Despite his hardened exterior, Bill had shown rare compassion for Luna in the past. He'd taken her into his home after her first incarceration, putting her under house arrest at his sprawling estate. Many speculated he did it out of guilt, or because he recognized her unborn child as something more than just Luna's burden. The child, after all, could be carrying Spencer blood. Whether the baby was his, Finn's, or someone else's entirely didn't matter. Bill had bonded with the idea of protecting both Luna and the child. But when pressure mounted and Luna fled custody, Bill stepped back. Now, with news of her rearrest, Bill is haunted by doubt. Should he have done more? Should he have fought to keep her safe under his roof? The complications don't end there. It was Elektra Forrester who tipped off authorities, ensuring Luna's recapture. The decision sparked a quiet fury in the youngest Spencer heir, Will. Still close to Luna from her time in the mansion, Will sees the fallout of Elektra's decision as a betrayal, especially now that Luna's child could be at risk. While Elektra insists she acted out of principle, protecting the family's name from further scandal, Will doesn't buy it. He's young, idealistic, and increasingly vocal about what he sees as cruelty masked as justice. The rift between Will and Elektra is widening, and it threatens to fracture the delicate alliances forming among the younger generation of Forresters and Spencers. Inside the prison, Luna realizes that playing the victim may be her only way out. Her mind works fast. She starts whispering to a few inmates, dropping subtle hints about how dangerous pregnancy can be in a place like this. She talks about her high-profile connections, about what would happen if something happened to her or the baby. It doesn't take much. One inmate offers to rough her up a little, nothing serious, just enough to raise eyebrows. Luna agrees. Within hours, she staggers into the infirmary with bruises and a bloodied lip. She refuses to give names, only telling the medical team that she's terrified for her safety and for her unborn child. The doctor examines her. No harm to the baby. But Luna's story, combined with her emotional state, is enough to trigger concern. Word reaches Baker, then Bill. This time, Bill doesn't wait. He calls in favors, pulls legal strings, and pressures the system to move Luna out of general population. He offers a deal, house arrest at his estate again, with private medical supervision and security. After a day of bureaucratic wrangling, the court approves it, on the condition that Luna remains under 24/7 surveillance and is not allowed outside the estate grounds. Luna is quietly transferred. To the public, it looks like mercy. But to Luna, it's strategy. She got exactly what she wanted. Back at the Spencer estate, she settles in like nothing ever happened. She's pampered, protected, and surrounded by staff who answer to Bill. But questions swirl. Was the attack real or orchestrated? Did Luna manipulate everyone yet again? Will Spencer watches her closely. He sees the shifts in her mood, the way she controls every room she walks into. He wants to believe she's a victim, but doubts keep creeping in. One night, he overhears Luna on the phone, whispering in another language, talking about plans, about movements, about keeping the baby safe no matter what. What is she planning? Meanwhile, Elektra begins her own campaign to expose Luna once and for all. She meets with Baker, demanding access to prison records, visitor logs, surveillance tapes. She believes Luna faked everything, the attack, the trauma, the fear. But her obsession begins to look personal. RJ and Hope confront her, asking whether this is really about justice or jealousy. Elektra snaps. She's manipulating all of you. Again. Can't you see it? But the damage is done. Her crusade is starting to isolate her. At the same time, Deacon, still reeling from his own betrayal by Luna, begins to reconsider his silence. He knows too much, and the guilt is eating at him. If Luna's capable of faking a prison attack, what else is she hiding? What if the baby really is in danger, not from others, but from Luna herself? He begins documenting everything, conversations, receipts, timelines. He builds a file, not for revenge but as insurance. And then Luna makes her next move. She approaches Bill with a request. She wants to have the baby at the Spencer estate, not in a hospital. She cites safety, privacy, emotional peace. She begs. Bill is hesitant, but the idea of the baby being born under his roof appeals to him. He agrees, under strict medical supervision. But this is exactly what Luna wanted. By giving birth at Spencer Manor, she locks herself, and the child, into Bill's orbit. Legally, logistically, emotionally. Once the child is born there, Luna can argue that the baby was raised in that environment. That the Spencer name has already been claimed. It's a legal gray area, but in court it could matter. Elektra catches wind of the plan and explodes. She goes public with her suspicions, leaking details to the press, framing Luna as a manipulative schemer exploiting a powerful man for her own ends. The media turns savage. Opinion splits. Some side with Luna, seeing her as a pregnant woman fighting for safety. Others see her as a liar playing a long con. As the delivery date nears, tensions skyrocket. Bill's house becomes a fortress. Sheila, out on bail after her arrest, lingers in the background, watching it all unfold. She knows Luna's game because she's played it before. And she's impressed. Then, finally, Luna goes into labor. The birth is fast, intense, private. The baby arrives, a healthy girl. Bill holds the child in his arms and says nothing. Just stares. Luna watches him with a faint smile. She's got your eyes. Silence. Bill finally speaks. We're going to need a paternity test. Luna's smile fades. It's not over. It's never over. In the world of the bold and the beautiful, nothing stays buried, and no one gets away clean. The baby is here. The lies are piling up. And the war for control has only just begun. In the intensifying custody war over young Will Spencer, the bold and the beautiful pivots into emotionally charged territory, drawing ex-lovers and longtime rivals Bill Spencer and Katie Logan back into a precarious alliance. With family lawyers circling and court dates looming, the once divided pair find themselves forced into uncomfortable proximity, not by choice, but by necessity. What begins as a reluctant co-parenting effort quickly evolves into something deeper, more dangerous, and impossible to ignore. Will is at the heart of everything. The boy has grown up amid wealth, privilege, and the volatile pull of two parents whose love story burned too hot, too fast, and ended in collateral damage. Now, as external forces threaten to destabilize his world once again, Bill and Katie are left with no choice. They have to work together. Joint custody isn't enough anymore. Their entire dynamic is under the microscope. Every parental decision, every late-night text, every missed school meeting is being recorded, questioned, and weaponized in the court of law, and worse, in the court of public opinion. It all starts with a mandatory psychological evaluation. The judge orders both parents to attend family therapy sessions and undergo character assessments. Katie, ever responsible and poised, embraces the process. She brings color-coded folders, detailed reports from Will's school, recommendations from his pediatrician, and letters from teachers praising her steady hand as a mother. Bill, of course, sees it as a PR opportunity. He strolls in with his signature swagger, expensive suit, and a freshly briefed legal team. But when the therapist begins asking real questions about emotional availability, parental presence, and household stability, Bill is caught off guard. Katie, though composed, watches him carefully. She's been here before. She knows that under pressure, Bill's worst traits don't stay hidden for long. His need to dominate, his jealousy, his inability to relinquish control, they're all still there, barely contained beneath the surface. And this time, one outburst could cost them both everything. The sessions stretch on for weeks. There are moments when Bill genuinely surprises her, making Will's favorite breakfast before school, volunteering to coach his soccer practice, even attending a parent-teacher conference without being asked. These aren't PR stunts. These are quiet, sincere gestures that remind Katie of the man she once believed in. And slowly, inevitably, the distance between them begins to close. Their conversations stretch longer. Their laughter feels less forced. Old memories sneak in, and for the first time in years, Katie lets herself wonder, what if he really has changed? They start working late together, preparing joint statements for court, discussing Will's future over takeout and old wine. The walls come down bit by bit. Katie begins to trust him again, not blindly but cautiously. For his part, Bill finds himself craving her approval. Not just to win in court but because it means something real to him. Katie was always the one person who challenged him, called out his flaws, and loved him despite them. And now that she's back in his orbit, he can't help but try to become the man she once hoped he would be. But the cracks begin to show. One afternoon, Katie receives a text from Carter Walton. A brief message about a rescheduled deposition. Bill sees it, and something ugly flashes in his eyes. He masks it quickly, but the tension simmers. Later, when Carter drops by to hand-deliver documents, Bill's posture stiffens. He looms a little too close. His questions carry an edge. The jealousy, once buried, begins to resurface. Katie senses it immediately. She's seen this version of Bill before, the one who needs to own, not share. She confronts him that night, telling him clearly, if you think this is going back to the way things were, it's not. We're doing this for Will, not for us. Bill apologizes, but the damage is done. That subtle shift, his need to control, reminds her why she left him in the first place. The trust she was beginning to rebuild cracks. She pulls back, emotionally and physically, and begins limiting their personal time outside of legal and parenting matters. Bill, frustrated and confused, doesn't know how to respond. He tries harder, but his efforts come off as smothering. He micromanages Will's schedule, questions Katie's decisions, even begins making veiled comments about her parenting style during therapy sessions. The therapist takes note. In court, Katie's team presents a calm, structured case. She emphasizes cooperation, stability, and Will's emotional needs. Bill's team focuses on legacy, security, and access to resources, but the cracks in his behavior begin to show. Under cross-examination, he snaps, just slightly, but enough. When asked about co-parenting strategies, he deflects. When asked about Katie's role, he minimizes. It's not a meltdown, but it's a glimpse into his old self, and the judge sees it. After the hearing, Katie corners him outside the courtroom. You almost blew it today, she says sharply. This is why we can't go back. You haven't changed. You just learned how to hide it better. Bill is stunned. He knows she's right. And worse, he knows he doesn't know how to fix it. Meanwhile, Will starts to feel the pressure. He's older now, more aware of the tensions. He asks questions his parents aren't ready to answer. Why do we have to go to court? Do I get to choose who I live with? Are you and Dad fighting again? The weight of the situation begins to take a toll on him. His grades slip. He becomes withdrawn. It's the exact thing both Bill and Katie wanted to prevent, and it's happening anyway. Katie begins to reconsider everything. Maybe the fight for sole custody isn't what's best. Maybe what Will really needs is peace, not a winner. She brings the idea to Bill, drop the case. Settle privately. Co-parent truly, without court interference. But Bill, pride wounded, ego bruised, resists. He sees it as surrender. Until one night, he walks past Will's room and hears him crying. That breaks him. The next morning, he shows up at Katie's house. No lawyers. No entourage. Just a man who finally understands. Let's end this, he says. We'll do it your way. Katie nods. They sign the papers within days. The court battle ends, not with a victory, but with a truce. They return to joint custody. With new rules, new boundaries, and a renewed focus on Will's happiness. Their personal relationship remains complicated, wounded, but not irreparable. The love is still there, buried beneath years of mistrust and mistakes. Whether it resurfaces or stays dormant remains to be seen. But for now, they've chosen to be parents first. And in the ruthless world of the bold and the beautiful, that may be the rarest, boldest choice of all, the bold and the beautiful. Will Spencer's defining battle for fatherhood and identity. The Spencer legacy has always been defined by power, pride, and possession. But as the bold and the beautiful continues to evolve, it is Will Spencer who emerges as the next generation game-changer. No longer the quiet, observant son caught in the tug-of-war between his powerful parents. Will steps into his own arc with a force and maturity that neither Bill nor Katie expected. And it all begins with trauma. In the aftermath of Luna Nozawa's explosive presence in the Spencer household. First as a pregnant fugitive, then as a legal liability, Will is left carrying the emotional wreckage. For a time, Luna had treated him like a trusted confidant, an ally, someone to lean on during her time under house arrest. But when the truth unraveled, about the baby, the manipulation, the legal games, And the eventual betrayal. Will was blindsided. He had opened his home and his trust, only to discover he'd been used as a pawn in a far larger, darker game. The fallout left more than bitterness. It left scars. Bill tried to move past it quickly, pushing Will to man up, to focus on school, to forget Luna as just another lesson in trust. Katie, ever protective, suggested therapy. At first, Will resisted. He claimed he was fine. He insisted he didn't want to talk to some stranger. But late nights became heavier. His demeanor shifted. He became short-tempered, withdrawn. Finally, after an incident at school where he snapped at a teacher and stormed out of class, the decision was made. Will would enter trauma counseling. That decision changed everything. The sessions began slowly, but over time, Will started opening up. He talked about the betrayal, but more importantly, he talked about the confusion. Luna hadn't just lied to him, she made him feel responsible. Responsible for her safety. Responsible for her child. Responsible for the emotional weight of secrets that were never his to carry. Through guided therapy, Will began to understand how Luna had blurred boundaries. How he had unknowingly accepted roles no teenager should be asked to fill. He started learning about emotional manipulation. He started learning about trauma bonding. He started setting boundaries. The therapist encouraged him to write letters to Luna, not to send, but to express. Some were angry. Some were heartbreaking. But each one chipped away at the fog of guilt and confusion. He began to reclaim his own voice, his own clarity. And with it came something unexpected, a growing sense of purpose. One day, during a particularly difficult session, Will said something that stunned his therapist and his mother. He said, "I don't want to just get better. I want to be better. For whoever comes next." When pressed, he admitted he'd started thinking about fatherhood. What it means. What kind of father he wants to be one day. And what kind he doesn't want to be. That realization marked a turning point. While Bill continued to orbit the custody war and Katie kept protecting her son from its political undercurrents, Will quietly built his own path. He studied legal documentation. He sat in on meetings between lawyers and social workers. He asked questions no one expected from a teen. He began to see how the court system worked. How narratives could be spun. How children like him were often used as bargaining chips. And then came the day that changed everything. Another hearing was scheduled in the custody battle between Bill and Katie. Not over Will, but over Luna's child. The courtroom would be filled. Press coverage was already buzzing. Everyone assumed Will would be there, seated quietly between his parents, another pawn in their war. But Will had other plans. Without telling Bill or Katie, he filed a formal request through his attorney to speak in court. As a legal minor affected by the surrounding custody arrangements and familial implications, his voice could be heard. The judge approved the request. And when the day arrived, no one expected what was coming. As the courtroom filled, attorneys prepped their remarks, and the judge prepared to dive into the next round of heated arguments. Will stood up. The courtroom silenced. Cameras focused. Bill and Katie froze. "I'd like to speak," Will said clearly. Permission granted. He walked to the center, standing where attorneys and adults usually argued over him. And then he began. "I'm tired of being spoken for," he said. "I've sat through too many meetings. Too many arguments. Too many strategies where I'm treated like a chess piece. I've listened to people talk about me, over me, through me. Today, I want to speak as me." His voice was calm, steady, not rehearsed, but deliberate. "I'm not a victim. Not anymore. I was hurt. I was manipulated. I was used by someone I trusted. Luna made me feel responsible for things that weren't mine to carry. And I let her, because I didn't know how to say no. But now I do." He looked directly at Bill. "I've also learned that being a man doesn't mean controlling everything. It means knowing your limits. It means listening. It means letting people go when they're not good for you, even if they make you feel needed." Then he turned to Katie. "And being protected isn't the same as being sheltered. I know you love me. I know you've done everything to keep me from getting hurt. But I need to stand on my own now. I need to find my voice." He paused, letting the room absorb it. "So I'm here today to say this. I don't want Luna near me. I don't want to be used as leverage in any more custody cases. And I don't want decisions about my life made without me in the room. If anyone wants to know how I feel, they can ask me. I'll answer. I'll tell the truth." Silence. Then, slowly, applause. First from the gallery, then reluctantly from Bill and Katie, their eyes full of conflicting emotions. Pride, guilt, awe. The judge commended Will's courage. And though the legal matters proceeded, the tone of the room changed. Will had shifted the power dynamic. He had spoken not just for himself, but for a generation of children caught in the messes their parents create. In the days that followed, Will's words were quoted across media platforms. Headlines praised his poise. Editorials lauded his maturity. Social workers called him a model case of trauma recovery and adolescent empowerment. At home, things changed too. Bill, shaken by his son's clarity, finally began therapy himself, something he had always mocked before. Katie, meanwhile, started giving Will more space. Recognizing that her protective instincts had sometimes blurred into control, their co-parenting dynamic matured. But Will didn't stop there. He joined a youth advocacy group focused on children of divorce, offering his story and voice to others. He returned to therapy not just as a patient but as a peer mentor in group settings. He even began writing a blog under a pseudonym, where he detailed his experiences and helped teens articulate their own feelings. For the first time, Will Spencer wasn't just the son of Bill and Katie. He was Will, a survivor, a speaker, a future father, a force. And in a world where power is currency, his greatest power became truth. In the legacy of the bold and the beautiful, where drama is constant and loyalty is rare, Will's arc marks something revolutionary. Not just another family feud or courtroom spectacle, but a true coming-of-age moment that redefined what it means to grow up in the shadows of giants. He chose his path, he made his voice heard, and he became, unmistakably, his own.